Hi everyone, my name is Vili and you are listening to Humans of Authenticity. I'm so excited to introduce you to our guest today, Mariama Boney, the President and CEO at Achieve More LLC.
Thank
She's a
you.
coach and a very well-respected leader in the ASAE community. Welcome to Humans of Authenticity, Mariama.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me.
Would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners first?
Hi, I am Mariama S. Boney, President and CEO of Achieve More LLC. What I do in the world is really about change leadership and about helping people, organizations, and systems transform. And I'm originally from Syracuse, New York. I live in Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. It's great to be here. We focus on the connection between human dynamics and organizational development and how to bring those two together to help professionals be the best that they can be and help organizations achieve more, be better, and maximize results.
I love how you start the entire introduction with your focus on change leadership.
Yes.
What's the proudest change that you have introduced to any team or any organizations or to any individual?
Thanks for asking about that. So, I make the distinction between change management and change leadership. When we think about change management, we think about managing processes. And when we think about change leadership, it's about systems and the people within those systems that we get to make the transformation, is how I like to see it. There have been so many great changes that have happened within systems. I've worked in higher education, about 4 or 5 different colleges and universities, associations, various leadership roles, and also I'm a licensed social worker. So I've spent time working with children and young adults as well. And when I think about impactful change, I think all of the changes that I've had a chance to be a part of have been amazing and wonderful. Everything from writing a grant for underrepresented and economically disadvantaged students that is still alive at Rochester Institute of Technology today, all the way through to the consulting work that I'm doing with the medical illustrators and the fact that they are contributing to a massive new database of medical images related to skin tone that's being sponsored by Johnson and Johnson, that's going to impact millions of people. It's going to impact and change how people see themselves in their own health conditions and everything in between. So those are things that I'm very proud of, and ways that we help organizations make those changes and think about the impact that they're having on communities and the next generation is phenomenal.
Again, I'm loving how you bring impact right into the conversations as soon as we talk about change. Please give me a better way to look at change if we start thinking about impact rather than being scared right away that we don't know what's going to happen when we introduce change into our system.
Exactly, which is why we have to be resilient, as we think about this concept around change.
So let's go straight into the keyword conversations so a bit of a backstory for our listeners.
Yeah.
Normally, I send my guests a list of 12 keywords for them to select on, and Mariama just go back to me right away and want to talk about resilience. Like right away that resilient is your word. And you
Yeah.
also share with me that this is how you got through the pandemic period. And this is the foundation of your book, Vent.
Yes.
That backstory with us.
Sure. So I think that my existence is a testament to resilience. Mariama Saran Boney is my full name. Mariama Saran means beautiful gift of God. I was born after several missed attempts. My mom decided to continue to try and had me, and I have an older sister as well. From that early time of recognizing me being here in the world, certainly by God's grace and my mom's resilience to continue to press through some of the deaths of my brother and sister is really key in terms of why I think resilience is so important. And then I think about my 20s as I moved through college and then being married, both to a man as well as a woman, and also thinking about having Bell's palsy, thinking about losing my own son, and then losing my father as well. And, thinking about all these different elements of tragedy and loss that also help you to continue to be resilient, right? And then on the other side of that, in terms of professionalism, thinking about being one of the younger women who wanted to be a director and continue to impact change on campuses and throughout associations, and some of the stereotypes that we get of being a younger professional, but then also being a woman who is Black and often being the only one in rooms, the only one to accelerate or elevate to certain positions, and the resilience that's within that, right? While you're also grappling with your well-being and all the other forces that are coming against you sometimes. So I think that that's really important. And then I also think about later on in my career, my resilience of not passing the CAE exam, and yet then being able to have an impact on hundreds of professionals who do come through ASAE's CAE kickoff and being a part of that awesome faculty team. And so the resilience that it connects to there, even through to the resilience of deciding to walk away from a situation that was not the best ethically for me, and to really step out on faith and to have Achieve More LLC be my full-time life's love and passion and work as well. So there are lots of moments where my own resilience has really come to the forefront, as well as all of the people around me during the pandemic in particular. We had an amazing group of women that we call BBI, and getting together to help each other once a week. We'd be on the phone talking through challenges, issues, opportunities, and really continuing to stay connected while we were separated. That in itself also, I think, really spoke to the resilience of women coming together and people coming together to support one another through life's journeys as well.
That is so cool. I
Thanks.
really appreciate the richness in different elements of the story that you just shared.
Yes.
The only Black person in the room.
Yes.
Can we start with the first bit, being a younger professional in the room? I think
Sure.
this conversation is helpful, especially for the Gen Z today. I think that they are incredible. They move incredibly fast in the
Yeah.
corporate ladders.
Yeah.
I saw some of them getting promoted into manager and leadership positions, which is amazing. Can you
Mm.
talk a bit about your experience in that?
Yeah, because I think for me, I saw what was possible. My mom was a full-time school teacher and she opened a business full-time. So we ran a family business to support her while she was also teaching at this point. And so part of it is recognizing what's possible. And she, as well as my father, always instilled in us what's possible, because they were both amazing educators, amazing people who really believed in those that didn't necessarily have all the resources to advance. And so for me, that was really critical. And I set those goals once I realized that I wanted to continue to work with young adults and work with young people. It was really important for me to continue to set those goals, but also to keep moving. And a lot of people know I often say, keep it moving, right? In a number of different ways. Gone are the days where we are in a position for 10, 15, 20 years. Because the world is moving so fast, we also have to be okay with the opportunity that the depth of our experience, the commitment and the impact of our experience can be enough. And it doesn't mean that you are quote unquote job hopping without regard to what you're doing. It means that you are intentionally thinking about what your path is and how you get there to continue to have the impact that you want to have. So, as a younger professional, I would often get the microaggressions around being young and not necessarily having all the wisdom, or people would think I was playing a different role, even though I was there as a senior director or a director or whatever. I think it's just really how you frame out your worldview and then also how you continue to invest in yourself around your career. I've talked about that consistently, that we cannot rely on companies, family, friends necessarily to pour into us the things that we need to be great. And so that is also something that I say to the next generation. Continue to pour into yourself and make sure that you have the resources that you need, savings, etc., for your own professional development and growth to be the best that you can be.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. So
Right.
to just wrap up
Yeah.
that piece of wisdom for our listeners, we are
Yeah.
talking about the focus here being invest in ourselves.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that because it helped me to diversify my understanding and help me to see things that I have not seen
Mm,
before. I want to unpack another thing that you mentioned
yeah.
in your earlier story about being the only Black woman in the room and you try work your way around to raise your voice and accelerate in that room. Can you
Yeah.
share with us a bit of your story and your way of navigating that setting?
Sure. I think that it is important to know and understand who you are, whose you are, and also what your values are. And that's where I love the values and action assessment that I encourage everyone to take. It's free. But it really helps you as you're growing and developing to understand what your values are and what your non negotiables are. Being in settings where you are the only one, not a problem. You just continue to move through and you develop the rapport and the relationships because that's really what's at the root of it. I grew up in Syracuse, New York at that particular time, predominantly white city. And although some of those demographics are changing, it's really important to know again who you are, because you are going to be in situations where you are the only one, and how you continue to manage that, whether there are opportunities for you to contribute a perspective that not everyone is hearing or seeing, or there's opportunities to correct a perspective that may have been misaligned, and also opportunities where there's a chance for you to stand up and call out a perspective that feels like it is attacking or it has not positive roots to it. So, all of those scenarios have really allowed me to cultivate my voice in a way that I feel comfortable with in terms of being direct, yet also immensely caring and engaging around the essence of who people are and the way that they move in the world to impact and to create impact.
That's really cool.
Yes. Mm,
Can you share some of that with me and can you share the steps that you undertake to get to that point when you realize that these are the list of your non-negotiable?
yeah. And so I think that my non-negotiables have come through the path to resilience, and ultimately recognizing that through the ups and the downs, the traumas, the tragedies, and the triumphs, that you start to understand for yourself what are the boundaries that you need to be successful, that you need to be your best self, and that you need to be able to be your best leader. And so for me, some of my non-negotiables are lack of respect. I think that it's important that we all be respected for our voice, our contributions. I think that that's really important. Another non-negotiable for me certainly is lack of transparency. I always used to tell my teams and still say to people today, like, I love surprises so long as it's a diamond ring. It could be a half dozen of roses. But please let me know what I don't know before I walk into a situation that doesn't serve myself. It doesn't serve the community that we're trying to impact. It doesn't serve members well, etc. So that lack of transparency, hiding things is definitely a non-negotiable for me. And I think those things come out of having managers and supervisors who thought that they were going to yell at me at one point, or people who in relationships, friendships, personal relationships, and even relationships with board members and volunteers were hiding things and doing things behind my back, the chair's back, that really ended up having grave impacts for the organization and relationship wise as well. So I think that those are kind of the two key non-negotiables for me.
I really love working with a team who set really clear boundaries so that we
Yeah.
know our rules of engagement.
Yeah.
Were you in a situation where you had to back down on your own boundaries, or when you feel that your boundaries was being challenged?
Yeah, I never back down on my boundaries. And although I might question my boundaries on the side, and that's why, I think all coaches should have coaches, all counselors should have counselors. I think it's important to make sure that we are constantly thinking about our boundaries. Have I had times where I've questioned my boundaries, or times where I thought, maybe I didn't hold the boundary as strong as I needed to, and an opportunity to go back and reinforce? Absolutely. But you can't really get to a place where you back down on your boundaries, because once you start to do that, then you're giving bits and pieces of yourself and the essence of yourself away. And if you continue to allow essence and pieces of yourself to be given away, then what will you have left of you? And how will you feel confident to pursue your goals, and how you show up and all of that? And so there are times where, yes, tweak things, you need to modify maybe how you said something, how you might have looked at something. Absolutely, right? No one is perfect. I'm not perfect. And so I think that making sure that you are clear about those boundaries is going to be important. So I had a scenario where me and my team at the time, when I served in an executive director role, discovered that there was some fudging of scores for a particular competition, needing to be very clear with the board at the time that if they were not able to figure out how to exit out the board members that orchestrated all of this, then they would not have an executive director. And while we went through the process and I coached them through the process of what needed to happen, it just didn't happen. And so that is where I decided to exit, because I was not willing to sacrifice my personal boundaries around transparency. I was not willing to sacrifice my CAE designation for participating in things that were unethical. I was not willing to sacrifice the two licenses that I hold as a licensed social worker in Maryland and Virginia. It's critically important to make sure that you're clear on what your boundaries are. Because other people might say, oh, well, we'll figure it out. We'll just kind of keep it quiet and figure out how to resolve it. But I had to call it out. We had a lot of legal consultation and process we had to go through. And ultimately, the board decided to censure one member, and others, there wasn't any removal. And so I really had to step away because it wasn't a healthy dynamic for me.
Can you share with us a bit about the standing of that organizations as of today? Was there any repercussions for the wrongdoing?
Yeah, they are still in existence today. And I think it's a good thing that they're still in existence because, again, all the people that they were serving and their members need them to be in existence. There were resignations from previous leaders because they too felt like the lack of transparency was unacceptable. But some of those leaders have since returned, new leaders have cycled in. And so I think that there is kind of a little bit of a refresh the path that they're currently on. And that was definitely one of the biggest learning moments that I have had in my career around boundaries and living into your values.
I really respect that, and thank you for sharing. Can
Thanks.
you also share with me another time when you question your own boundaries?
I think about personal dynamics, personal relationships, and also relationships with colleagues and coworkers. I'll just even use a very simple boundary. My name, right? My name is Mariama. It's not Mariama. It's not Mariana. It's not Marianne. It is Mariama, right? And so there are times where people have called me M, they have called me all different variations of other than what my name is, separate from accent and things of that nature, right? I think that just the fact of how I prefer to be named and how I need for my name to be utilized is really important. So please don't shorten my name. Let's try to pronounce it as correctly as we can and give me the opportunity to make sure that the birth name that I was given is lifted up in the way in which I would like for it to be. And I think that I'm constantly in spaces where I do need to correct people for how to pronounce my name. I let them know how I prefer for my name to be utilized and referenced. And so I think that that's really important. And that is a small example, yet it's a boundary because one of the things that we know about people is that names have power, right? And we also know that one of the most beautiful sounding things to a person is their name, even as they are moving through trauma, tragedy, death, interviews, etc., right? People's connection to their name really means a lot through a lot of dynamics and situations. So it's important. And that is, for some people, it might seem small, but it's really significant for me because my mom went through a lot to get me here.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. It's very
Yeah.
impactful and it's giving me goosebumps.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Vent. I have a copy here with me. It is such an interesting resource. I mean, I've flicked through it multiple times and I'm sitting with these questions and I use them as prompts in my journaling. Who would need a book like this? So when you put this book together, who do you have in mind as your audience?
Yeah, for me, it really was God-given. During the pandemic when we were all here, I was here by myself, but also having an opportunity to still stay connected with folks and seeing what was happening in the world. And so this acronym around vent came to me, but vent in a different way, right? We often think of venting in terms of like just getting it all out. Yet I want to take it down a notch or transition it a notch in terms of volunteering emotions and needs through talking. Because one of the things that I have realized is that it's the absence of communication, the absence of real dialogue that is really hampering our leadership because people aren't finding their voice and people aren't exercising their voice. That's where I came up with the concept around vent is how do we, through talking, having a conversation, express our emotions and our needs. And we can do that in so many different ways. And so that's where the vent series came from and really making sure that we're utilizing those principles around expressing our needs and around expressing our emotions and the things that we know are going to help us be better leaders. And so I've got the 3 books, and then the last one is focusing on resilience and recognizing that as we were kind of coming through the pandemic, what are the core principles that we know we need to continue to be resilient, right? Through all of the trauma and the tragedy, how are we actually expressing that, getting that out, and having conversation about it? And I think if we could have more real conversation about our needs, about our emotions, and then put that into the context of the leadership that we want to exercise and the impact that we want to have, then we would continue to be resilient. So often people are feeling like they're not enough, which is why we're seeing high rates of anxiety, high rates of depression, suicide, or worse health dynamics, obesity, lower finance, economic, status. And we know that there are systemic issues that are connected to these things. And at the same time, if we could create spaces where we could have greater conversation and talk about these elements in a real light, wow, what that could do for the impact on our leadership and the transparency that we need to lead with today. So that's where that came from. And as people think about and question themselves of, are they enough? Know that your mere existence and the fact that you're getting up each and every day, the fact that you made it through that really tough board meeting, or the fact that you made it through that really tough conversation with a mother, brother, or a partner, a husband or a wife, the fact that you made it through that tough conversation with a volunteer leader or a colleague, the fact that you are making it through and you're able to bounce back, that is enough. And that's the essence of resilience.
Thank you so much for wrapping it up very, very eloquently. We are getting to the end of the episode very soon. Is there anything else about resilience that you want to share before we wrap up?
I think it's important that we do 3 things when it comes to resilience, because I think that it also leads to a pathway of our superpowers and really exploring the strengths. I do Clifton Strengths. I'm always working with teams around DISC and the 5 behaviors model, and really thinking about leadership and the way in which leadership impacts the decisions that are made, the way in which leadership impacts that strategic plan getting accomplished, right? Or the strategic plan even getting developed. I think it's important for people to, number one, assess their values. It's a great resource out there by the Character Institute, so that you're clear on your values and who you are, who you want to be, how you want to shift and change over time. The second thing is also to assess your resilience, right? There's a lot of scores, really great tools out there about looking at community resilience, looking at resilience in children and how that has impacted us as adults, looking at our current resilience, which is a little bit different from grit, but we can have that conversation later. Assess your resilience, because I think that gives you, with your values, and tools in your toolbox to draw from during those tough and difficult times. And it also gives you an amazing sense of tools to draw from as you continue to move forward and navigate your career and your life. Assessing your resilience is really important. Then the other thing I would say is to share it. Make sure that you're sharing how you've been resilient. What are those core elements of your resilience? And lastly, live it. Really try to live in your resilience and remember that you are resilient. Your resilience is enough. It is going to lead you on a path of revelation and restoring yourself, seeing the truth and reconciliation process happening in South Africa in the late 90s really was a life-changing experience that helped me want to continue to do social justice work and leadership work at a greater level.
Thank you so much. So as a wrap up for this bit, if we want to start training our resilient muscle, the 3 things we have to do.
Yes.
First of all, assessing our own values. Second of all, assess the resilience. can be our current level of resilience, the community that we serve, and how they impact on us, and then leave it, know that we are enough, explore our own resilience. Thank
Thanks.
you
Thank
for wrapping it up. Last question for this episode. What's next for you in the coming 12 months?
What's next for me in the coming 12 months is to continue to pour into teams and help teams work better together, right? To achieve more, be better, and maximize results. We will also be launching an online center that's going to be focusing on courage and transparency to really help people think about how to lead with courage, lead with transparency. That's critical. And to continue to be well, really focusing on my own health journey and my own wellness journey is critically important for me at this point in my life as I'm in a hormone regulating phase of my life. Some of you will know what that means. So yeah, I think it's really important to make sure that I can be as healthy as possible, mentally, spiritually, and physically.
That's amazing. I wish you all the best with your health journey. Before we wrap up, if people want to know more about your new online center, how can they go about it?
Yeah, certainly connect to www.achievemorellc.com. I'll be posting information there, rolling out some new programs, and here as a resource for organizations and teams to work better together and to be able to achieve more together. Absolutely check in on the website. I'm also on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. I experiment a little bit personally on TikTok as well. You can definitely find me, and I'm here to be a resource for anyone that needs it. Set up a 15-20 minute conversation and let's see where we can go.
That sounds great. Thank you so much. This is the end of the episode. Thank you again for sharing your time and stories.
My name is Mariama Boney, and you are listening to Humans of Authenticity.